Here is the latest Higher Summits forecast brought to you by our friends at the Mount Washington Observatory.
Weather above treeline in the White Mountains is often wildly different than at our trailheads. Before you hike, check the Higher Summits forecast at mountwashington.org. Weather observers working at the nonprofit Mount Washington Observatory write this elevation-based forecast every morning and afternoon. Search and rescue teams, avalanche experts, and backcountry guides all rely on the Higher Summits forecast to anticipate weather conditions above treeline. You should too. Go to mountwashington.org or text forecast to 603-356-2137.
Broadcasting from the Woodpeckers studio in the great state of New Hampshire, welcome to the Sounds Like a Search and Rescue podcast, where we discuss all things related to hiking and search and rescue in the White Mountains of New Hampshire. Here are your hosts, Mike and Stump.
So you're going to start with the Mount Washington Observatory report? We're going to do it live?
Do you want me to do that first? Sure.
Yes.
All right.
Yes.
Yeah, let's do it. So this is for the weekend of June, Friday, June 16th, and Saturday, June 17th. And essentially what we're looking at here, if you read into the discussion, Friday, they're looking at getting some thunderstorms, short-lived thunderstorms, single-cell thunderstorms, lightning, strong wind gusts may be possible, moving offshore Friday night. And then as we go into Saturday, the chances of thunderstorms diminishes a bit, but widespread rain becomes more likely, and winds will also be on the increase into Saturday. So we're looking at a wet weekend. So the chance for thunderstorms will still be present, although the lack of heating at the surface will inhibit storm formation. So the most dominant weather for Saturday will be widespread, steady, stratiform rain, which is pretty interesting. So Friday, mostly in the clouds, under mostly cloudy skies with a chance of rain showers, chance of scattered thunderstorms, high in the 50s, northwest winds shifting south at 15 to 30 miles an hour. Friday night, in the clouds with rain likely and chance of thunderstorms as well. Lower 40s, winds shifting southeast at 15 to 30 miles an hour, increasing to 40 to 55 miles an hour with gusts up to 65 miles an hour. Now here's the Saturday. So in the clouds with rain likely and a slight chance of thunderstorms, lower 40s. Eek. So
you guys are going to be miserable on Saturday
what do you mean,
morning.
You guys? Hold on a second.
Miserable.
So southeast winds shifting east 35 to 50 with gusts up to 65 miles an hour, decreasing to 25 to 40. What do you mean, me? Or
you
us?
guys, because I'm bailing on the Mount Washington race.
I can't believe it. I'm not surprised.
What do you mean you're not
out.
surprised?
You're just bailing. You're just bailing. I can't believe it.
I'm injured.
All it took was a broken toe.
Yeah, Gwenn. So we got Gwenn with us. We'll introduce her in a little while. But I've been working out, getting ready for this race, and I went hiking last weekend and I stubbed my toe so badly that I can't run. I don't think so. I'm going to try to do a run tomorrow morning and see how it feels. And then if I feel okay and I can get like a mile or two in, then maybe I'll run it. But
yeah, that's not good.
I don't know. It's pretty bad. My toe is hurting bad.
Yeah, it's such a bummer.
Are they still going to have it even with the weather? You think,
yeah, they'll have it.
Yeah.
Let me read the email update I got from Auto Road today. It says, your safety is our number one priority. Please come prepared for ice, snow, very high winds, or hard driving rain. They've had the most snow this June on record. And specifically for this weekend, it says cold, wet conditions are predicted for Saturday. So with very cold temperatures at the summit with a high of 40 degrees, make sure to give your support drivers warm clothes and a change of shoes for them to bring to the summit. And obviously check the forecast. I just looked at the Gorham. See, what I've been doing all week is looking at the Gorham and Bartlett forecast for the lower levels. And Gorham just went up to 1 inch and a tenth for Saturday. It just went up to a complete inch and over. Oh boy. And I did some research on stratiform. It's sort of complicated. There wasn't a very clear definition, but from what I understand, it's upsloping winds and lighter rain, but that constant small bead rain. So yeah.
With wind, that's what gets you.
Oh yeah.
It sounds horrible.
It's gonna be wild.
Oh boy.
Type 2
Yes.
fun.
Well, let's go
now,
back.
Gwen, have you ever done the road race before?
No, I'm not a runner. I'm not a runner.
You could be a power walker. That's what most people do. So we'll get you up there
hiker
eventually. But we'll see. I would say the likelihood of me running in is about 10% right now. But Stomp is going to be 100%. He's there to represent. And it'll be good having you on the mountain because just in case someone needs a little bailout, they got you to protect them.
Oh, you know what's really funny about this whole thing? There's like legit zero room for the 10 essentials on this run. And it's the worst weather possible. Yeah. Oh my God. It's like it's the antithesis.
You know what
of
I
how
found
I
interesting? I looked at the that email they sent out. I didn't realize it makes sense because the last time I ran it was during COVID and they didn't have water stops. So you had to bring your own water. But now I guess they just make it a practice that everyone carries their own water. So you have to have a hydration vest with you. So
well, at least you know you won't be sweating all that much.
Yeah, true.
It won't be that hot.
Well, there's a balance there too because with the rain, your body can't release the heat, but it's going to be so damn cold with that cold, wet weather. I don't know. It's going to be very interesting. How would you prepare for this, Mike or Gwen? I mean, I've been dwelling on my layers and what I'm going to wear for socks and under layers and whatever for days now. It's a conundrum.
I just have a couple different. So we did one last weekend and it rained on us the whole time and multiple layers. And literally, I changed 3 times, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm going with, so if I run, what I would be going with is like probably my heavier darn tough socks, I'm wearing trail runners, and then heavier shorts. Then I'm wearing like a wicking t-shirt, wicking long sleeve shirt, and then I'm going to shove like a raincoat in my hydration pack, and that's basically it. You know, and I'm going to go with maybe some gloves, and that's about it.
Yeah, even more.
Yeah, I was thinking similar. I'm going to do my compression stockings, but I'm also going to cut a pair of my minus 33 long thermals down, cut them at the knee so my shorts will have an underlayer underneath there. But I was thinking the same thing, just packing some kind of, windproof something or other in my ultralight pack along with my my Gatorade or whatever. Yeah.
Yeah. Because think about it, like really all you need to do is survive from the 4,000 foot mark when you get above tree line, and then you've got that like 2.5 mile push So you got to get basically up past the hairpin turn and then go from 5 to about 6.5. And then by then, you're so close to the summit by then, it's just adrenaline's going to take you through. So you'll be uncomfortable, but you also have the luxury of knowing that like you're going to have like the car up there with the warm clothes and you can dry off. So you really don't need to prepare like you would have to prepare for like a hike because you don't have to get down.
What about safety glasses for the wind and the rain? That could be a problem, especially with gusts of 60.
Could be. Oh my God, Gwen! This guy, he's been texting me all afternoon. Like, what am I going to do? What he's
what am I going to wear?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, what am I going to wear?
What am I going to wear?
Yeah, exactly. Oh, all right. Well, anyway, we'll see. We're going to leave a cliffhanger. Will Mike run? Will he not? Is Stomp going to survive, or is he not? We'll see. But welcome to episode 110 of the Sounds Like a Search and Rescue podcast. So this week we are joined by Gwenn Stratton. Gwenn is a prolific local hiker. See, you're prolific now, Gwenn. She can often be seen on the steeper and more challenging trails in the White Mountains and beyond. Gwenn's kind enough to sit in and talk about some of her favorite hikes with us tonight. She's going to share her tips for route planning, and will talk to us about some of the slides, gullies, and tougher routes in the White Mountains. We'll talk a little about photography, hiking with kids, and many other topics. So all this, plus we recap the 48 Peaks Longest Day event that we had at Reklis last weekend. It's Bike Week in New Hampshire. We're going to talk barefoot hiking. We've got dogs eating stuff they're not supposed to eat. We've got backpack advice. We've got the world's worst father story. And we've got some recent search and rescue news, including multiple rescues in New Hampshire. We've got kids surviving 40 days in the jungle. We've got a hiker that went missing just in time to miss his court date. So we got lots to cover. I'm Mike.
And I'm Stomp. Let's get started.
Excellent. So we talked about the forecast here, Stomp. I had a question for you about backpacking because I'm planning on getting a couple of trips going here. When you backpack, do you use like those dehydrated bag meals, or do you do something a little more hearty?
Initially I did, but I've moved away from that, and I just bring, just dry food, just natural food, whether it be nuts or whatever I can bring that doesn't really require a stove or anything like that.
Okay, I still use a stove, but I don't like those like meals in a bag. Like I read this article in Backpacker Magazine. They were trying to say that dehydrated meals have come so far and that they're really fantastic. And
maybe they have.
I don't know. I don't believe it. I've tried them. I don't like them. I go with my Chef Boyardee. I bring a little bit of tin foil because that's the one thing is that I do the Chef Boyardee. I put the tin foil inside my pot so that I don't get all the food inside there. I heat it up, and then it's good the next morning. It doesn't get all gunked up, and I can just use it for water and coffee. So,
yeah, that's an interesting point there about the coffee. I tend to lean towards doing coffee rather than those meals. But they're also very salty and everything else, if I remember correctly. It's been a while.
Yeah, some of them are. But I was just curious.
Yeah.
I had that as a note to ask you.
Huh.
All right, we talked about my toe drama. I can talk about like what happened when we get to recent hikes. But yeah, I can't run. I barely walked for 3 days, and now I'm up in the air on Mount Washington. But we talked about the road race here. So
I have a tip for you. I mean, even if your toe is sore, I think you'll be fine because you'll have hypothermia and you won't even feel your toe, so you'll be good.
He really wants me to. He really does not want to do this by himself, Gwenn.
I think you need to do it.
Yeah. And I think you have a new trail name. I think it's like Toes or something.
Stubby.
Stubby.
Stubby toe.
Yeah. So, Gwenn, I don't know if you follow our Instagram, but I posted a picture of the toe. It got a lot of reaction.
Oh my God!
It was nightmare fuel.
I'll have to check that out before I go to bed tonight.
Oh, well, wait till you wake up.
Okay.
You may not sleep.
Are you ready for Slasher's Gear Review?
All right, so we're going to talk a little bit about gear here. So Stomp is talking about umbrella hats. So I've seen these before. I think Danielle had used this on the Appalachian Trail before. But
Yeah.
what are your thoughts? It's too windy to wear an umbrella hat this weekend for you, Stomp.
Well, I was leaning hard. I was leaning hard on getting one of these things until I saw the gusts of 65. So I think I'm going to pass on it. But yeah, I'm curious if there are people out there that use this beautiful piece of gear. And, by the way, when we cover gear, it's like, because everybody does it better than we do, but nobody does it like we do. Gear reviews by SLASR. So yeah, this one that I posted here is 77 centimeters wide, so it's massive. It's like 2.5 feet wide over your head. I can see it like in 65 mile an hour gusts. I could see somebody getting a cervical sprain as the wind whips your head back. So yeah.
No serious hiker is going to wear one of those, Stomp.
Oh, somebody was wearing them on the Alzheimer's hike, so you better be careful.
Sorry. Sorry, I apologize. Whoops.
Yeah, there you go. Umbrella hats.
Right. Well, so you have your umbrella hats. I was pulling up some info on backpacking, so I've been thinking about like my overnight trips that I got coming up this summer. So I pulled a list of the top 10 backpacks from Phil Warner's Section Hiker, and then Backpacker Magazine also has some recommendations. So both of them have so this is for backpacking, so this is for overnight. Most of these are going to be in like the 45 to 65 liter range size-wise. So both of them have the Backpacker Magazine has the editor's choice, and then Phil has, on Section Hiker, has this is his top choice, and he says the Osprey Exos 58. It's 2 pounds 10 ounces, and they both have, both have this as their top choice for backpacks. I see Osprey all the time, so I'm assuming this is the one that everybody has, but I have never used it.
It's interesting to me that they're mostly hovering around 50 to 60 liters. Huh. Yeah. I still can't imagine doing that because I'm so used to the space in my pack. 115. And even then, it's like when I'm backpacking, it's just barely enough room for the stuff we bring.
Yeah, that's crazy. That's a lot of size.
Mm.
Next up is the Hyperlight Mountain Gear Southwest 3400 pack, which is what I use. This is like a 50 liter, I think, or 55 liter, and 2 pounds 2 ounces. And so Section Hiker has this one as their second recommendation. This is a unisex pack as well. So all the other packs I'm going to talk about come in men's and women's versions. Mm-hmm. Backpacker Magazine Hyperlight Mountain Gear does not come in at all, which is surprising, but I don't know. Maybe they didn't pay the reviewers enough. So number 3 is the Osprey Atmos 65 liter. So this is almost a 5-pound pack, and this is not on the Backpacker Magazine. This is just on the Section Hiker. And then I'm going to go down the list quickly for the rest of these. So the REI Flash 55 is a 2 pound 13 ounce backpack. I see these more and more. The REI Flash brand seems to be like their ultralight brand for tents and hiking poles and backpacks and stuff like that. So this looks like a pretty cool pack actually that I might even consider grabbing in the future, but It's not on the Backpacker Magazine either. They have Granite Gear, Z-Packs Arc Haul, Deuter Air Contact Ultra. So I have a Deuter backpack as well that's pretty good. These are all under like 3 pounds. The Z-Packs Arc Haul is actually 1 pound 5 ounces, which is insanely light. And then they have the ULA Circuit 68 and the Gregory Focal. So I don't know if people have these backpacks or not. I don't know, Gwen, what do you have for a backpacking backpack?
Winter, I have a Hyperlight. What is it? It's more of an ice climbing pack.
Okay, I know that version.
It fits my for carrying snowshoes. It works really well. And then in the summertime, I actually have a vest. And you wouldn't believe how much stuff you can actually jam into the my ultra mid direction vest.
Yeah. Oh, no. I have one too. I have a Fastpack 25, and I think I probably get about 50 liters worth of gear in that thing sometimes.
You can shove so much stuff in those. So they look small, but you can pack them pretty tight.
Yeah, exactly. And then Stomp, your giant 115 liter is what? What brand is it again?
It's a Lowe's Alpine.
Yeah.
115 liter. Wow.
Yeah. Well, it's expandable from 90. So the default is like 90. Then you can pop up the brain and make that even bigger.
How much does that weigh, Stomp?
That's a good question, because I was looking at the weights of these, and so I see one in there by Kelty that's 5 pounds, and that's an 80 liter. So I don't know. I'll have to get back to you on that, but I would assume it's at least probably 5 pounds, maybe less. We'll see.
Stomp loves that backpack. So you know what I like about it is it's so recognizable. Like I can see him coming from a mile away, the blue and the black with the patches. So it's easy to tell.
You just see the pack.
Yes. Yeah. Exactly. Well, half the time you don't know who it is. You can't tell from looking at the face. So
yeah, it doubles as a bivvy. I get to sleep in it.
Yes. Exactly.
You could wear that as your rain cover. Just throw you.
Yeah. True.
Yeah.
Oh man.
All right, so it is Bike Week. Stomp is saying he's losing his hearing. Everyone's driving like maniacs on the road here. Mrs. Stomp wants a T-shirt. Stomp, you should get one of those T-shirts that says, "If you can read this, my wife fell off the back."
Right. Yeah, I've seen those. Yeah, it's funny. We actually went down a couple nights ago, and just to get a T-shirt. She just had it in her head to get one, so we went down, and it was a good time. It was actually really funny, though, because a lot of those vendors with the T-shirts, there's like 100 vendors down there, and they all say authentic, original, like merchandise, like every single one of them. So you don't know which one is the actual authentic, original merchandise. They all are, apparently.
Yep.
But it was a good time. But yeah, I'm losing my hearing because I was in Lincoln all day on Main Street, and man, all the people were heading over to Mount Washington to do the ride to the clouds or the sky, whatever they call it. And man, they were using the Kank, and I'm like seriously deaf. It was the loudest day ever.
Yeah, well, I think we'll all be happy that Bike Week is over. So,
well, unfortunately, the rain's going to wash them out this weekend. Because this is their big weekend coming up.
It is, yeah. Usually they're all lined up on Mount Washington for the race to finish up, so they can all drive up. So they won't be able to go up. But good. All right. So then last weekend there was the longest day 48 Peaks event for the Alzheimer's. Actually, it's technically on the 21st, but they had their after party ahead of the event on June 10th at Reklis Brewing. So there was a bunch of people out there hiking. I saw like 3 different crowds on Mount Hale because it was rainy and everybody sort of pivoted to go to safer routes. So Hale was a very popular hike on Saturday, but we went to Reklis Brewing afterwards. Stomp was spinning the tunes, getting the crowd going. There must have been, I've never seen Reklis that crowded.
Yeah, that was a great time. It was really nice.
Yeah, Floki was there, Mel was there, Eric Todd Sweet was there, all kinds of dignitaries. It was fun.
Diplomats.
Yes.
Yeah, it was a good time. So I think they're on their way to reach their goal of 200,000 by August. So
no doubt. Yeah, no doubt. So we'll do an ad for them, but definitely sign up. It's not too late, and I think that they're well on their way. And Reklis was a great time. That place is the best to go to after hikes.
Oh, it's a perfect location.
Yeah,
no question.
All right. So next up, we've got a barefoot hiker here. What is this guy?
This is submitted by GS Bar 1. Thank you very much, Bar 1.
Okay. I got this sent by somebody sent this to me. I think John Huck sent this to me as well. But so this guy he's a barefoot hiker?
Yeah, he's tackling the 48 without any shoes. Pretty hardcore, yeah?
Yeah. Yeah. Until he stubs his toe, then he won't be so hardcore.
Yeah, I don't know what his background is in particular, but there's a nice picture of him with his muddy feet. And yeah, I wish him the best, but that's a pretty novel idea. I'm sure it's been done, but you never know.
So his Instagram is long_brown_path, and he's known as Barefoot Ken, and he's done marathons, ultras, and he's a barefoot runner hiker. So,
three-season hiker, I would think.
I would think so. He's probably not doing much in the winter, but this was big. I remember barefoot hiking was like barefoot running was like a craze for a period of time after that book Born to Run came out. There was a bunch of people that would transition over, and I think I tried it on the treadmill once, and I was like, "This is stupid," and I just gave up. But this guy never gave up.
Yeah. I went through a phase with that too, and I actually went from North Andover all the way to Lake. It's that lake in Haverhill. I forget the name of it.
Winnickenny.
Yeah, Winnickenny. And that was like at least a 15-mile run barefoot. No, it's definitely Winnickenny. It's got the castle up top there, but I went through that phase, and it's interesting. I mean, if you're really cautious about your form, you can pull it off, but you're just destined for trouble if you're going for the long haul with barefoot running, I think.
Yeah.
So much impact.
Maybe we'll get this guy on and find out what his deal is. He might be an interesting guest. So.
Oh, yeah, sure.
All right, next up, there was a story that came over social media that I found interesting, Stomp, for dog owners. So this owner had said that she was out hiking, and she suspects that her dog got a hold of an edible pot candy on the trail. She thinks that maybe somebody dropped a gummy or something.
Oh, wow.
Apparently these pot, I'm not a pot guy, so I don't really know how this works, but we've got a bunch of these stores now, and they sell like candy and all this stuff that apparently has marijuana in it. And she's saying that her dog got a hold of one of these while they were hiking and got really sick. And she just wanted to put a warning out to people that, like, if you're taking these things on the trail, we know we got some friends, Stomp, that like to do this. Just make sure that if you drop one, that just consider that a dog or some other animal might get a hold of it, and it doesn't end well for the animals.
Yeah, that's a shame.
Yeah. Some people were blaming the owner and saying like she needs to keep a better eye on the dog, but it's a dog. Dogs are going to eat stuff.
You got to keep a better eye on your drugs, I think.
Yeah, exactly. That's what she said. She's like,
right.
I'm going to keep an eye on my dog, but like the dog's a dog. It's going to eat stuff. So it was funny. There was a couple of comments too. Like people were talking about how their dogs have got a hold of like people, in their waist too close to the trail, and, they get sick that way. So there's all kinds of stuff out there. So you got to keep an eye on your dog, but also don't drop stuff on the trail.
Your drugs. Right.
Yeah, don't drop your drugs on the trail. Yeah. Keep your drugs on your person. Keep them in your ultra. Gwenn's got a big backpack; she can fit plenty of drugs in
Yes, I can toss those right in there.
Yes, yeah, exactly. Next up here, Stomp, non-hiking related story, but interesting nonetheless, and we'll have to remember this story for Halloween. Harvard morgue manager, and I think these people live in New Hampshire, so that's the connection. They were charged with selling body parts. So apparently this guy was in charge of like the morgue. So I'm not doing this, first of all, but when you say I'm going to donate my body for scientific research, I just envision like, a bunch of medical students with my body on a table standing around just judging me. So I'm not doing it. But apparently like this guy had made a connection in like the, I don't know, freaks and weird artist type of community, and he was selling body parts. And one of the people that bought the body parts was a lady that owns a creepy things store in Salem, Mass. And her niche is that she creates these like real life dolls for people to take home, and like, I don't know, they're like little like werewolf dolls and things like that. And she was actually buying actual human faces and drying them up, and they think that she was like putting them on the dolls. So,
yeah, it's a weird subculture. I know it's a business. Business in the sense of like the illegal body parts thing going on in China with Falun Gong and all that. I'm not talking about that, but the troupe that travels the world with their bodies. It's like an exhibit. You go see the bodies. There's a connection.
I've seen those. Yeah.
Okay, so they're connected to this as well. This is a big rabbit hole that you got to check out. It's wild. It's crazy. So you've got that going on too, but I think the culture is just very strange, and I'm sure you can meet all kinds of interesting people
Yeah, well, I can tell you this much. Like, anybody that might have considered donating their body or their relatives' bodies for medical research are going to read a story like this and be like, absolutely not.
End up in downtown Salem for Halloween.
Yeah, no.
Your loved one.
And then there was an article too, and I'll post some of these articles in the show notes, but like one of the guys that was buying the body parts was one of these guys that has like the metal bolts that are like embedded into his skull, so he has these metal horns coming out of the top of his head.
My
like,
God.
anybody that's doing that, like, they should have immediately arrested this guy because he's not up to any good. But
Jeez.
They've got him now. So just a weird story that I wanted to include, Stomp. And I think we had some pop culture talk, but let's skip that because there's something new that developed on that whole story. We could talk about Conor McGregor, the UFC fighter, but there's late breaking news on that I think let's wait till next week.
Sure.
To talk about that because something weird came up. But why don't we go right into your first sponsor?
Sure, yeah. I was going to say, though, you should donate your toe.
Oh, yeah.
Anyway, yes, we have a sponsor. The first one is CS Instant Coffee. CS Instant Coffee, your one coffee solution. Anywhere, anytime, search CS Instant Coffee. And we're gearing up for the backpacking season, so check out CS for all your instant coffee needs. You can get your stickers at Ski Fanatics and Spinners off of Dascombe Road in Andover. And we have a coffee donation here. And this is from Christopher Walken.
That's his real name.
Yeah, that's so funny. Paquette. And he donated 3 coffees and in parentheses here, $15 for each mile that he ran on the Chicora White Mountain Endurance Race. So thank you very much. And let's see, we have another sponsor before we get rolling here. So Vaucluse Gear. Want ventilation and less sweat on your back when backpacking? Check out Vaucluse Backpack Ventilation Gear. Back sweat sucks in all types of weather and hikes. It's uncomfortable and a risk factor, causing your core temperature to fluctuate if it doesn't evaporate off your back. So Vaucluse's ultralight ventilation backpack frame is an accessory that installs in your favorite pack, 18 liters to 55 liters, creating a ventilating airflow gap between you and your pack. They're releasing their Generation 2 frame now. It weighs only 4 ounces and handles the heaviest pack loads. Whether you're in hot or cold temps or have a pack with a curved frame, the ultralight ventilation backpack frame is slate. Oh, shit.
What happened, Stomp? You messed up the Vaucluse. Bryce is going to be upset.
I'm doing this off my phone, and my phone jumps when I do this with my little finger. So, I said a swear word. I apologize. So, whether you're in hot or cold temps or have a backpack with a curved frame, the ultralight ventilation backpack frame is a real game changer for ventilation and airflow. So visit VaucluseGear.com to order a ventilation frame today. Vaucluse is a fan and a sponsor of this podcast. Maybe not after this one.
Not so much.
Use promo code SLASR, SLASR, for a $10 discount. There you go. That's crazy.
Oh, sorry. Well, that was
amateur.
Quite a slip. Now I'm going to have to set an explicit rating for this episode.
Oh, goodness.
All right. So, Vaucluse, matter of fact, I used it again. Like, I've been using it a lot, and my daughter uses it too. And we actually have the Ultimate Direction fast packs, the 25 liters. We both have the same pack. And I was actually I was asking her, and then she was checking my back when we got to Zealand Hut. And I was like, am I sweating? Can you tell? And we didn't have anything. We were fine. I was like talking to some other hikers. They were asking me, what is that thing? And I was like telling them. So I think I got a sale for Vaucluse.
That's fantastic. Yeah, they're flying off the racks for sure.
Yep.
We get a notification every time one is sold, and I keep on getting emails like, wow, super cool.
Excellent. Yeah, keep them coming. So beer talk here, Stomp. So I'm still not drinking, but I did fall off the wagon. I had a beer at Reklis. They didn't have carryout, so I got some kind of an IPA. I can't remember the name of it. You said you had several beers at Reklis?
I think I had 3 or 4. Yeah, so you had one. I had like 3 or 4. And
Wow.
it was a great time. Yeah, I'm trying to keep my weight above that 200 mark.
And carb
Damn,
loading.
I'm not losing my I'm not losing my Clydesdale status for anything. What was that, Gwen?
You're carb loading. You get a carb load for your race.
You're right.
Yeah.
Oh, boy. But it was a good time. I really missed not seeing Reklis Steve. He was out backpacking. Every time we're there, he's out doing something. And I don't know. Oh, well.
Yeah. Well, good for him. I saw that he was going out backpacking, so I figured he wasn't going to be there. But we did drink your beer, Steve, and we appreciate you. So hope to catch up soon. So recent hikes. Where you been? Anywhere?
Oh, nothing. Nowhere. I'm just focusing on this crazy race, and it's over this weekend, so I'll be back to it. A couple more days. How about you?
I did mount. So we were planning on going hiking. We wanted to get out there, and then we were going to go to Reklis for the Alzheimer's celebration. So originally the plan was to do Kinsman's. The weather didn't look good. Then I was like, maybe we'll do Mount Carrigain. The weather didn't look good, so we changed it over to Mount Hale. We had 2 cars, so I was like, why don't we? I'll drop my car at Halebrook, and then you drop your car at Zealand. And actually, we dropped at the car at Zealand, then drove back down to Halebrook, and then started, and we did a little loop where we went up to Hale and then down Lendahand, chilled out at the hut for a little bit, and then went out the Zealand Trail and Zealand Pond, and it was absolutely gorgeous. And the rain was ending when we started the hike, and then by the time we ended it, it was like beautiful going through Zealand Pond and that area there with the bog bridges and stuff was just unbelievable.
Yeah, I can imagine. Well, that's great.
But as I said earlier, I was coming down Lendahand, and I forget what we were talking about. It was me, my daughter, and her boyfriend, and we were goofing around. And I think I asked her about like a song, and I thought that like this song was sung by the Arctic Monkeys because she's going to see them in concert. And then she was like, no, that song's horrible, and it's not the Arctic Monkeys. And I was like, I thought it was the Arctic Monkeys. I don't know what it was. And then I wasn't paying attention, and I just literally slipped. My foot just slipped down this rock about 6 inches, but it slammed just at the perfect speed. And I knew right away, like my toe just started killing me, but I didn't stop. I was like, I'm not going to look at it. I didn't do anything. I just was like, I'm going to keep walking even though it hurts like hell. And I just went right to Zealand Hut. And then after I sat down and I got up, it hurt way worse. So my advice to people is if you tweak an ankle or you do anything like that and you can move, like just keep moving even if it hurts like hell. Because I feel like once you stop, it's way harder to like pick it up again. So just keep the adrenaline flowing and just get down.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, the swelling will kick in too.
Yeah. So it was like, okay, then I got back to the car, and by the time I got back to my my house, it was just black and blue and ugly.
Oh, that's a shame, bud.
Yeah. Well, very good.
It's all meant to be.
Yeah. So why don't we skip the notable hiker stomp? We'll load those up for next week and get right to a couple of advertisers, and then Gwen is going to have her big moment.
Yeah. So Seek the Peak returns this summer with the Classic Mount Washington Hike-a-thon. This annual gathering of New Hampshire's hiking community is the nonprofit Mount Washington Observatory's largest annual fundraiser. Hikers raise funds, earn gear, and celebrate at our Praise Hike Party on Saturday, July 15th, with live music, food trucks, epic gear raffle, beer garden, vendors, and people who care deeply about the trails and an inclusive hiking community. It all takes place at the base of the Mount Washington Auto Road. Our Hike and Make Friends option supports all ability levels, pairing hikers with similar goals for a trek that's right for you. All hikers are welcome to help raise funds for the observatory's Summit Weather Station and services like the twice-a-day Higher Summits forecast, educational programs, and research in the White Mountains. Seek the Peak is sponsored by Great Glen Trails and Eastern Mountain Sports. Learn more and register to hike at seekthepeak.org. And then we're going to return to Base Late Coasters, which I jumped in on earlier. So Base Late Coasters create unique, beautiful, functional, and expertly laser-engraved coasters with topographic maps of the 4,000 footers of New Hampshire and more. These coasters are handmade on Cape Cod from slate, quarried in the United States, and provide a durable and heat-resistant surface for your drinks. Each surface features intricate detailing of any mountain topography for the location of your choice. Bay Slate Coasters will work with you on your custom hand-designed coasters for any street or topographic map. Let's just say anywhere on Earth or beyond. So visit bayslate.com today to explore a full range of topographic map coasters. Use the code SLASR10, SLASR10, at checkout for 10% off of your first order. Yeah.
Stop. I totally forgot, too. I meant to tell you, as you were doing the first set of sponsors, that the clings are going out. So,
oh, good.
And
Excellent.
we've got more of those. So I'll send a note out, but I've been like stuffing those in envelopes and getting them ready to go. So I apologize for the delay, but life happens. I got a broken toe.
You can't get to the post office.
I'm not moving as fast as I normally am here. So
you hop.
It's time for Slasher's Guest of the Week. Very cool. Very cool. Very, 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 very cool.
yeah. But all right, Gwen. So this is your segment here. So are you excited?
I am. I'm nervous. I'm not.
Okay, you should be. You should be. We're going to grill you here. So why don't we? Well, so I'll just give a little bit of background about what I know about Gwen. So Gwen, we've had like Steve Mason on. We've had Eric Todd Sweet. I'm friends with like Mike and Jen Keene. So I've sort of known you because you sort of run in the same circles. I've seen you out hiking a couple of times. I think we ran into each other on the Crawford Path coming up Mount Washington one time. I saw you heading up Mount Pierce over the winter. Didn't get a chance to say hi because I was like with a whole bunch of people or whatever, but you're out there all the time. So that's what I know of you, and we definitely wanted to get you on because you've come up, like, as we've talked to Steve and Eric and Jen and Mike, it sounds like you're like the main organizer on a lot of hikes and whatnot and have a lot of knowledge in different routes and different bushwhack slides, things like that. So we figured we'd get you on here and find out a little bit more about yourself. So why don't you start off by introducing yourself and giving some background?
Okay. So I was born and raised here in New Hampshire. Grew up in Nashua. And I really didn't get into hiking until my early 40s. I was a gym rat pretty much from my late teens into my 30s. And I know from my IG you saw I used to be into bodybuilding. And that was sort of my and always will be my first love from a fitness standpoint. And then after I had my daughter, I went back and I was like, oh, let's try competing again. And I did a couple shows and realized that I didn't want my daughter to grow up thinking that, that you should be judged based on, your body, because that's basically what bodybuilding is. So it no longer held the same love for me. Working out still does. I love muscle, but just not that particular outlet. And then around that same time, my daughter started going to a camp that I went to when I was a kid, which was Camp Sargent in Merrimack, New Hampshire. And it reminded me of how much I loved being outside. And that was just a part of my life that after, I got into my teens, and then, I was into like big hair and loitering at the local park and getting into trouble with my friends. Didn't really do much outside. Except for that. And so it just kind of reminded me of my love for being outside, for boating, for canoeing, all that stuff. So I started doing local hikes around my area, just like, Bear Brook, Beaver Brook, nothing with any, crazy elevation. And then a bunch of my gym friends had said, oh, let's go hike Chicora. And I was like, oh, all right, let's go do that. And at that moment, standing on the summit of Chicora, I realized this is my next thing that I want to do. Like, I love hiking. I love being out here. And this is something I could do with my daughter. And
Got the bug.
And then from that on, I just literally, like, every weekend. So that was like in August of 2015. I started going out and hiking. And then I was scared of winter hiking, so I didn't hike that winter, but that's how I got into rock climbing. Was I decided, well, I'm scared to hike in the winter because I don't have any real experience with it. So I joined an indoor rock gym, Vertical Dreams in Nashua, and started doing that, and also brought my daughter into that. So she's been rock climbing since she was like 8 years old.
Okay.
And then eventually just met that group of people that you mentioned, and then really started getting into the more crazier things.
Great. And then did you start off sort of just focused on, like, because most of us just sort of start off and say, like, okay, I'm into it. Now I found out about the 4,000 footers and I want to do that. Or did you really care about the list at all? Or were you just more focused on other pursuits outside of the lists?
Yeah, exactly. So it started with the 48, and I actually did a lot of solo hiking. So when I started the 48, I had started with a couple of my girlfriends, and then I did carry into winter after that. That was 2016. And I figured I'm just going to keep going until I can't go anymore. So I'm just going to keep trying, and if I feel like, I can't, I have to stop for the season, I'll stop for the season. But I never had, I just figured out my layers. I figured out what I needed. And I ended up, hiking throughout that whole winter. And that was for my 48. I was trying to knock out my 48 list. And that's when I met, like Steve and Gavin and Eric. And then they helped me finish the remaining peaks on my 48. But then after that, I didn't care about lists anymore. It was more fun stuff, slides, and things like that.
Do you generally get out do you do weekends or midweek hikes, or do you get out like every week at this point?
Yeah, every week. So, I do work full time, and I do have like specific goals of just personal goals for myself, just fitness type goals. I tend to be very goal oriented, and I like to have structure and consistency. So usually I will get out if I have a Friday off. I have a boss who's very understanding, because I do work sometimes on Sundays where I can get every other Friday off. So I'll try to go out then or on the weekend and do that. I call that my long hike. So, when people train for a marathon, they have a long run. That one day is kind of like my long run or long hike.
Good. When you first started, if you can think back, when you started doing solo hikes, not even the winter stuff, but just sort of the solo hikes, and trying to dial in your gear, do you remember, like, did you learn more from just talking to people, or did you just do your own research online?
I love research. I love to research. So I researched the heck out of everything. And when I was going into winter hiking, that's exactly what I did. I didn't, I would be part of the Facebook groups, but I knew right from the beginning not to ask questions.
That's awesome.
But I also knew how to search for things too, so it's really good at that. And I have to say, blogs were huge. So Steve Smith, a shout out to Steve Smith. Yeah. His blog was a huge help to me when I was searching for things. Same with Chris Daly, and then the section hiker.
Philip Warner.
You mentioned, Mike, at the beginning. That was another tool that I used as well. But yeah, I researched the heck out of everything. And I would, if I found, this is the best boot, I would make sure that multiple places said that was the best boot before I would go and buy that boot. Same with snowshoes. And then obviously it's trial and error for layers. And that was a big thing of, okay, I went out and I'm cold. So this isn't working. I need to find something else. And then I found a system that really worked. And it's actually a system that I've been using ever since.
Yeah, and I think that the one thing that people will run into a little bit when they are a researcher, and I'm the same way, is that you can get analysis by paralysis or paralysis by analysis on things like that. Like you can overthink it. So there is a balance there where you do need to just at some point just cut it and make a decision and get out there and test things.
Agreed. Yeah, you have to pull the trigger. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, which is good. So you pretty quickly settled into your systems as far as winter hiking and summer hiking, and you tend to go pretty well. I mean, you probably balance it out pretty good between safety and weight, but you do some longer distance hikes. Can you talk a little bit about how you sort of came to the decision around, what gear you use and your sort of tolerance for going a little bit lighter or not?
Yeah. So I do. So I get nervous about the cold. For me, the cold, I used to say that it was my kryptonite, but it's not my kryptonite because I know it doesn't, beat me. So it's more my nemesis now. But I get nervous. So like, let's take last weekend, for instance, where we were doing a longer hike. I knew it was going to rain. I knew that the temperatures were going to be cooler. And I did have my vest, but I knew what layers I needed to bring. And I brought multiple. So I had a soft shell. I had a rain jacket, a light rain jacket, had a Smart World shirt. I had 2 pairs of gloves. I had 2 pairs of socks that I could change out. I had my fleece hat. So things like that. If I couldn't have fit that in my vest, then I would have brought my bigger pack. So I'll definitely weigh out risk versus, I don't need, if I'm going to die, because I packed too light, then that's bad on me, so I definitely try to weigh out what is a risk. And I just like, you were saying earlier, I think Stomp had said, I don't just look at mountain forecast. I don't just look at the observatory. I also look at the local weather, which is what I've been doing pretty much this whole week, planning out my hike. For tomorrow is, okay, well, what's it saying on the higher summit forecast? Now, what's it saying in the town? And just taking every single factor in for my planning of how am I going to pack? What am I going to bring? Do I have a hike where I can loop it somehow, or I can get back to my car in the middle of the hike so that I can have things there as well? And then always looking at bailouts. So I love also mapping hikes. So I love looking at how things connect, but I also like to know if I need to bail, how can I bail? And I'm constantly thinking about that as I'm going through my hikes is, okay, if this happens, I know that I can go down here and I can take this path to get here. And just always keeping those things in the back of my head, the what ifs. And so I pack according to that. And so, yes, I do pack lighter, I think, than, someone who, than not most people, because I do actually have, the essentials of what I need. Always have a filter. Always know where my water sources are, and aware of whether there's low water. So sometimes I've been out there in July where, typically the water source is plenty, and then you get there and there's minimal water. So planning out those types of things.
Sure.
Yeah.
One question. So we have a lot of seasoned hikers that listen to the show as well, and I'm kind of in this boat right now. And it's been easier for me because like my daughter's pursuing the 4,000 footer list. So essentially, like my hikes are, if she's involved, then it's just like, okay, where do we need to go to get one of your list, either the 4,000 footers or 52 with the views, and then if not, then I'll wing it. I'll go up to Evans Notch or something like that. I'm kind of got my eye on Grafton Notch this summer, but can you talk a little bit about how you come up with ideas for fresh hikes, considering like you've been in a lot of areas around the Whites, and how do you keep it so that you don't get bored?
Yeah, and that is definitely getting harder because I have done a lot of the, different routes that I've sort of mapped out before. But I'm always trying to obviously look for difficulty level, and then trails that I haven't hiked before or trails that I love, like where you go, Evans Notch.
Yep.
I don't know if you've been in the Wild River Wilderness that much, but that area is outstanding and it's beautiful and you hardly see anybody when you're in there. So I'll look at an area like that and then, pull in like the bald faces, with Eastman, and then, but dipping down into the Wild River, you can go back up on the other side to the Carters and, just looking at how different things connect. Like I love maps. I love route making. I love researching again. And that's what I'll do. I'll look at, okay, what area do I want to be in and what can I like connect together and make it a loop so I don't have to car spot to make it interesting and to see different things. And then obviously you're going to still repeat stuff, but if you can do it from a different angle. Like last weekend, my friends Stacy and Ryan came with me and they had never been on Twin Brook Trail. And they had never been on the other side of Lincoln Brook Trail, and that's a beautiful section of the Pemi. And so just, getting into those areas where most people don't necessarily go because it's not part of a list, unless you're, doing all the trails and the whites.
Yeah. Can you talk? Actually, I got a question about that particular area there. So I think like Mason was on and we talked about this a little bit, but like you guys, I believe, had bushwhacked up into that sort of Hellgate Ravine in that area there to approach West Bond. Have you done that? Did you go there with him?
Yep, that was Guitar Slide. That was probably the top of that bushwhack on West Bond was probably one of the worst and the thickest. I mean, there was like moose poop all over the place. I'm like, how could a moose possibly get through here because it was so thick? But yeah, we did that one. We did the Guitar Slide. And then just over this past fall, we did but behind Bear Brook, so it takes you up to Guyot. There's a slide, nice. And we actually, so I used LiDAR to find some of the old logging roads that are back there, like in the Pemi itself, that sort of led up to that area. So instead of just following Franconia Brook, we actually cut up to follow some of those old logging roads, just to see, even though we could have followed Franconia Brook, would have been a little bit easier, but we saw remnants of the old railroad that was there as we were walking through.
Yeah, I've run into that as well, like coming down the Lincoln Slide and like bushwhacking over to Franconia Brook, and there are like, there's like these like skid trails where, they would use like carts or whatever to get the logs out to the railroad sections, and it's just wild in there. But so what you're saying though is you actually went in past Franconia Brook and went in up into that section between like Galehead and Guyot. There's slides back there that you can climb.
Yeah, so if you drop in, you can either drop in through Lincoln Woods, or you can come from Galehead, drop down Twin Brook or Franconia Brook into the Pemi, follow Franconia Brook, and then there's a Bear Pond. You have to bushwhack to it. So behind Bear Pond, you can see those slides too. Actually, you can see them from. I think you can see them from the Twins also. Stacy wanted me to show her where they were. But yeah, it was probably one of my favorite slides just because of the view from the slide. It was pretty amazing into the Pemi. I mean, I don't know. I love the Pemi. I'm sure you guys love the Pemi as well.
Yeah, that's awesome.
It just gives you a great perspective of that area. It was beautiful.
Yeah, no, it's a great area. I haven't been that far in, and I got to get down there by like 13 Falls and that whole area too. I haven't gone over on that. I haven't gone down the Twin Brook section, but I got that on my list for sure. So that's interesting. But so you continue to do these slides and sort of these deeper hikes as of now, or have you sort of stayed away from them? Like, because I do feel like some of them are like, bushwhacks. Stomp loves them, but I'm not a huge fan because I don't like to get stuck in the deep brush. So I get nervous that I'm going to get myself in over my head.
I do still do. I haven't. So in the fall, it's great to do it because the leaves are falling off of the trees, so you can kind of, see a little bit better. And you're not, we're right now, as everything's sort of filling in, it does get a little bit harder. And I haven't done them because of, the snow had lingered for a while. But definitely I do love bushwhacking. I do love going out to places where other people haven't gone. And so I'll definitely be back out there, doing that. And what was I going to say? Oh, but it's funny because my daughter has done some with me. And we did one on, Mariah. It's Peabrook slide. Stump, have you heard of that one?
I haven't, no.
So that one it's fairly new. I think it just happened a couple years ago, one of the storms. Really? Yeah. Wow. And you can see, so it's really cool because at the bottom of it, you can see the devastation of all the trees that sort of came down. They're all like piled up. It's crazy.
Yeah, that's amazing.
Yeah. So my daughter and I did that this summer for her to get Mariah. And she's great. She can navigate as well. So she was navigating up the slide. We found a lot of cool black tourmaline. We found a huge chunk of black tourmaline that I wished I could have taken with us, but it would have just been way too much to carry.
Just put it in your daughter's backpack. She would have.
She would have. She's great like that. But it was funny because we're in the whack. So we got to the top of the slide. We're in the whack. We're going through the woods, and I'm trying to like break branches and just so that they're not getting in her face. And then all of a sudden she's like, "Mom," and I'm like, "What?" She's like, "Can you stop doing that?" And I'm like, "What?" She's like, "Would you stop breaking the branches?" And I'm like, "Oh, I'm just, trying to help you out." She's like, "Every time you break that, it goes into my eye." I'm like,
"Oops."
Yeah. So that was good. And I do like to torture her like that with the bushwhacks, because definitely by the end, she's kind of like, "All right, this is, I'm done with this." But
did she take to the hiking right away, or was it because my daughter, like, I feel like they all, like, all three of them did it because they wanted to do stuff with us, and then over time, like, my two youngest weren't that into it. My oldest one was like, "Yeah, I'll do it," but like, I don't think she was that into it. She's now into it, and I don't know what I did to get her into it, but like, I'd be curious, like, what your daughter's evolution was like.
Same thing, Mike. So when I first started, I would just bring her with me, and I'd be like, "Oh, okay, we're gonna go do a hike." And we did, I think, Arethusa Falls she did with me, and she did Lonesome Lake, and then her first 48 was Moose. And yeah, there was tears sometimes. There was definitely, I would be like, "Hey, you want to go hiking?" She would be like, "Well, if I say no, I still have to go anyway." It's kind of a thing. And but like, awesome. I think the great thing about it was they learn how to deal with hard things. So to me, it was the best possible thing I could have done for my daughter, in the sense that through that whole process of times when she would get upset and she would cry, or she would get through it. And at the end of the day, it didn't matter that she cried. It didn't matter, what happened. And what mattered was she did the work, and she completed it, and she was tough enough to get through it. And I think she figured that out too, because as time went on, she would get better at, when we would do hard things. She would get better at, okay, I'm frustrated right now. This is hard. I'm angry, but instead of complaining about it, she was sort of like, "Okay, let me process this. Let me get through this." And then she'd be okay. And, she was able to appreciate the hike itself. And as time went on, she got better and better at that, which I think, sets the kids up, sets us up, right, for being better in our lives, for dealing with tough things,
Yeah, and I think there's something to be said for sure for, especially because these kids are, like when we were younger, I feel like we could shut it down for we get home from school and it was sort of like, everything's shut off. You don't know what's going on in the world. Same with the weekends, but they're constantly connected. And I think that, the anxiety level in young people right now is probably higher than it was when we were that age. And I think there's just something to be said for them facing adversity and realizing that, I can do tough things, because I feel like maybe they're not as exposed as we were back then. So
I agree. And that was, I remember we did Washington, her first time up Washington. I forget, I think she was 9, 10, and it was hard. And she did great. She got up there, and then we're coming down, and that's the tough. You've done the tough stuff. You just want to get back to the car, And so she was having a hard time with it, and she was crying, and I have a hard time with that, because I'm like, there's nothing you can do. You have to get down.
You blame yourself, but it's like,
you have to get down, and it's like, when we got back to the car, and then she felt bad about getting upset. And I said, I just explained to her that what she did know, what she accomplished was the same as what everybody else accomplished on that mountain. Everybody climbed that mountain. Everybody accomplished getting that summit. The only thing that was different was the way she chose to experience it. So you could either, say, okay, this is where I'm at, and I'm not going to allow myself to get upset about it. I'm going to deal with it, and I'm going to enjoy the time that I'm out here. Or you can get in your head and get upset about it. And I think actually that was a moment where things started to sort of shift for her, where she started to started to check herself before she started spiraling and on other hikes. And which is a life skill, right? Because in our professional lives or everyday lives, we have to deal with things like that. And, that just teaches you to be stronger and to be able to handle those types of things.
Yeah, and I think as time goes on, too, the more successes they have, the easier it is to sort of point back to those successes to say, like, look, you climbed Mount Washington when you were 10 or 9.
Yeah.
You're having a bad day on Musalaki at 14. Like, that's not a big deal. So,
exactly. Yeah.
So it works. But I got the boyfriend tagging along now.
Yeah.
So he's like, oh, great. I'm dating the family that does the 5K on Thanksgiving and does the hiking stuff. Like, oh, what do I got myself into? So.
And if your daughter's tough, he has to be tough. He can't complain, right?
Well, yeah. So they're hiking this weekend, and my daughter had so he didn't bring a backpack, so we had 2 backpacks, and my daughter was like, I'll carry the backpack. And then as we were coming up Halebrook, it's not a hard hike, but it's a steady grind. Yeah. She's carrying the heavy pack, and he's not carrying anything. And then she's kind of dragging behind a little bit. And I think he realized he's like, let me take the backpack. I was like, that's a good choice.
Oh my goodness.
But he did great. He was, he loved it. So,
that's
awesome. You never know. Yeah. All right. So a couple of other questions that I had for you when I talked about this for a couple of weeks. Like, I've gone through I got a little heavy over the winter and the fall. I was eating too much junk food. I've gotten myself sort of back into shape with a diet and getting my exercise routine sort of balanced out. But how do you maintain between sort of the gym rat work and the hiking and cardio activity? As you get older, have you had to change your fitness routine, your diet routine? Can you talk a little bit about how you sort of stay healthy? And then also, have you faced slowing down a little bit and sort of had to face the reality of
getting old?
You can't do the things, you can't do the things that you used to do as much as you used to.
Yeah. So it's funny. When I did compete, my coaches were like, don't do cardio. So, before I couldn't necessarily do cardio because my metabolism was pretty fast, and if I gained weight, it would be in my stomach and not my my arms or my legs. So cardio was always out for me. So I was never a runner, never a hiker, nothing. It was all just lifting weights. So that's funny that this is where I'm at now in my life, which I think part of that too is getting older, and then now at this stage of my life, kind of needing that. As an extra thing. But yeah, so I'm a creature of habit. I am definitely probably one of the most consistent people you'll ever meet in your life. I eat pretty much the same thing every day, except on the weekends or when I'm hiking. And obviously it's just, you have to have I don't like saying diet because really it's a lifestyle, right? Yep. So whatever you choose, it has to be sustainable, and you have to ask yourself, is this sustainable? Can I do this forever? And if you can't, then, it's probably not the right thing for you. Like sometimes it's just if you drink soda, it's saying, okay, I'm going to go to diet soda, just take that sugar out, and that's something I can do consistently, and it will save me, X amount of calories a day. But it's always about just asking yourself, is it sustainable? Is what I'm doing? Because it's a lifestyle change, not like a diet in the moment is what it should be. And then that's how you'll, it'll stay consistent. And obviously getting enough protein, eating the right carbohydrates, but eating carbohydrates, eating fat, not cutting those things out of your diet because they are key, especially if you're running, you definitely need those carbs. And then you need the protein. And that's pretty much what I've done, is just kind of follow that through. And and I can, as I get older, entering this next phase of my life, I guess, you do start to see things. I wake up in the morning and I have to walk sideways down the stairs because my bedroom's the stairs, and until everything starts to sort of warm up, and then I can move at a regular pace. But I do abuse the hell out of my body every day, so I guess that's on me. I'm afraid to stop too, because just like you said, Mike, like if you stop, right, and then everything starts to hurt. So I feel like if I stop, then everything will start to hurt forever. So
when I realized that, like the age thing for me, or like it was the drive, the 2-hour drive home. Sometimes, a lot of times I'm going over to Maine, so it's not that lot. But if I got a 2-hour drive home in Massachusetts, that dreaded like pulling into the driveway, and then it's like getting out of the car after a long hike. You're like, oh, it's the worst pain.
I was like, I call the dogs over. Can I jump on your back? Get you right to the door.
Exactly. So
So I definitely have those pains, and
All right. So a couple more questions for you. So the long stuff, the presidential traverses, the Pemi loops, the whatever Kilkenny Ridge stuff. Can you talk a little bit about like how frequently do you do those sort of long single day crazy hikes, and then any tips or advice for like a Pemi loop or a presidential traverse for 1 day trips?
So now I'm in that phase of my training where I've been trying to get those big hikes once a week. I know it's crazy, but I do train during the week as well. So I think, Stomp, you're doing the up and downs on Welch. Is that where you're doing your up and downs?
I was. Then I shifted over strictly to roads, the Waterville Estates. And I actually ran up to the high point as you're heading up. What is it? Instead of going to Lost River, you head left up towards Ravine Lodge, towards Moose. So I ran up to the high point past, Weedamoo, or Walker Brook, I think it is, where the bomber is. That long stretch. It's
I know
like 3 or 4
exactly
miles.
what you're talking about. Yep.
Yeah. So I'm mixing it up, stuff like that. Yeah.
Especially where the road race is on a road, so it makes sense that you
Correct.
do. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, and so that's the kind of stuff. I have this little very unimpressive hill near my house. It's about 100 feet invert. It's about 0.15 miles up, so 0.3 miles out and back. And that's where I train. And so I'll train on that during the week just to sort of keep my endurance up, and just to keep my body conditioned for bigger things. And then I'll do that long hike on the weekend, preferably on a Friday, so that I have that whole weekend to do whatever I want to do. So then I do those. And then for advice, I think, so the big thing, and I'm sure both of you can attest to this when you've done long hikes, is time on trail is what gets you, right? Mm-hmm. So, any way that you can kind of reduce that time on trail. So just being efficient on the areas where it's flat, so that you move a little bit faster in those areas, just to make up. I'm not saying you have to be a trail runner. I'm not a trail runner. I don't look at myself as being someone who's super fast or anything like that. I look at myself more as someone, as an endurance athlete, and that's it. And part of that is being very aware of time on trail. and then trying to be as efficient as possible in the areas that I know I can move fast on. And I think if more people did that, that they could get through some of these harder things that they don't think that they can get through. Is just being efficient in the areas that you can be efficient, because everybody can kind of move fast on the flats, right? And I know downs sometimes, like Prezi Traverse downs, you can't necessarily move fast because of the rocks. I'm a klutz, so me moving fast on the rocks, I'm gonna like face plant. Done it a few times, caught myself before I did actually face plant. But like Pemis, where you have the softer ground. And I think just trying to reduce the time on trail, because it's a psychological thing. You're out there, the longer you're out there, the more tired you get, the more mentally tired you get. So the more that you can reduce that time by just being efficient on the areas that, you can be efficient on will help you get through that and make it less painful.
Yeah. All right. And then do you do any backpacking overnight stuff?
I haven't. I want to. Right before COVID, I actually bought a bunch of stuff because my daughter and I were going to go out and try doing some backpacking, because, we have friends that do it. And then once that happened, my daughter for a little while kind of lost interest in hiking that first year, that 2020. And then that's when I started going kind of crazy with the elevation and going up and down hills and stuff. But I definitely would like to do that with my daughter. And I have my friend Mandy Kane. She's really into backpacking. And her and I have talked about her taking my daughter and I out, so that we can, test the waters and do it right and have all the right stuff.
Nice.
To do it. Yeah.
And then any close calls, any calamities on the trail, any times where you thought, like, I'm going to have to call 911 to get my ass hauled out of here?
I can tell you about a really crazy one that we did do. I was with Steve Mason, and we had done this crazy thing in the Wild River Wilderness. So basically went up Wildcat. We did a cat to Mariah Traverse, but then dropped down into the Wild River Wilderness to come back, to go back up Wildcat A. And then it was going to start raining. And so we're on Wildcat D, right? That's the ski one.
Yes.
We're on Wildcat D, and we're like, you know what? It's going to start raining. We shouldn't go down the Wildcat Ridge Trail, because that's where our car was parked. So we had this brilliant idea to head right down a Black Diamond Trail underneath the tram, because we could see the parking lot. So, hey, it can't be that difficult, right?
Steep, right?
Whoa. No, it was like literally cliff boulders, right, that you can't see because it was overgrown with grass.
Yes.
And so Steve's like, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to go get the car, and then you just come. He's like, I'm just going to run down this hill, and then then I'll meet you at the bottom. So I can't see him now. He's gone. But at that point, he's down, and he realized he's not off the mountain, but he's down far enough where he can't see him anymore. And he realizes, I don't know if I can swear, this was not a good idea. And this is really tough. There's like boulders you're falling through in between these big boulders into water, and
oh man!
And so I literally, and it did start raining on us too. We're coming down, and like, I swear Mother Nature loves to mess with me. So and she does it to me all the time. And I'm just sitting, I'm like, okay. Like, I literally like just looked at the sky and I was like, all right, like, I get it. I give up. White flags, like, just get me off this mountain alive, please. And I think I cried. So,
oh, man.
But we did make it down, and we did survive. But that was definitely that was beyond type 2 fun. I'm going to say it was probably type 3 fun. And yeah, it was not our best choice, but we've done a lot of crazy stuff, but I think for the most part, again, like I'm a researcher, but I am very logical too. And I'll take risk, but it's measured risk. And, so most of the time, whatever situations we get into, it's not we know what the risk is, and we know when we're not comfortable with it and when it's something that we can't handle. But that was probably the one time that we really made a really dumb mistake, and we're lucky that nothing bad happened.
All right. Well, my last question, and then Stomp, you may have some stuff you want to cover, but the Lowell Chute. So this is the section across from. This is in Kerrigan Notch, so this is across from Mount Kerrigan, Lowell Mountain. It's got a chute, a slide that is notoriously difficult. Stomp and Casey and Jimmy Chaga had done it once, I believe. Have you done it with Mason?
Yeah. So I think the difference, Stomp, with us was we did it. Was it end of May, I think? Or not end of May, beginning of May. So there was still some ice.
Yeah,
there.
Sure.
And I think that actually worked in our favor to some extent because it was loose, but it wasn't fully dry. So I don't think, when you go up the watcher and the watcher has like, you grab onto something and you're like, oh, there's my handhold now in my hand and no longer connected to the thing. Right. So
yes.
We didn't get a lot of that on that when we were doing it. And it felt a lot like the watcher to me, but an extended watcher. So
interesting.
You were like, it wasn't that short little spurt. It was longer.
Sure.
And then we did get to one section where there was ice, but we were able to navigate around it. But I do think I thought it was great. It was definitely sketchy, but I never at any point felt I was in danger. And Steve did have a rope. We didn't use it, but he had it just in case we needed it. And again, I do think that having it be frozen worked in our favor. However, when we had to do the whack off of it, it did not work in our favor because
it's a tough whack out.
Not only was it a thick whack,
we
were post-holing like crazy because there was still snow in there. But so that one I didn't. I maybe at a different time of the year would have, like maybe July or when it's warmer and drier out, it would have been, a little bit more sketchy for us. But I do think that that because there was a lot of frozen ice, that it actually worked in our favor, but not enough to make it slick climbing up, but just enough to sort of keep all that rock sort of binded.
Did you have any snow buildup to lessen the height of some of those pitches that you have to climb?
Only there was one pitch that was, I don't want to say it was flat because it was sort of angled. There was some ice and snow buildup on that section, but it was avoidable, and we did actually have our spikes on while we were climbing.
Yeah. Oh, interesting.
Yeah.
Did you wear climbing shoes with spikes?
No, I just had the spikes.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Oh, I love that spot. It's such an amazing view of Carrigain. It really is unique looking through that gully.
Yeah.
Wow. Well, good for you guys.
It was cool. It was definitely cool. So have you done Landslide Gully?
No. After the Lowell Chute, I sort of lost my nerve for all that stuff. I got to be honest, Gwen.
Yeah.
But I always have the itch to do something like that. I can't lie, but I'm like, I don't know.
That one is gorgeous. There's a section on Landslide Gully where you feel like you're in like those like the Greek arenas, just the way that the rock is broken down. It looks like steps. It's beautiful. Yeah, it's very cool. Yeah.
Now you've done what is it, Lincoln's Throat with the big head wall there?
Yes.
How's that?
That was really cool too. That was I think it's like a 5-6 pitch up there.
Okay.
It's always wet. So that kind of sucks. But we had a good, so I think actually there was only 4 of us out of our group that went up that section. It was Gavin, Steve, and Tracy Morgan. Was it Little Squirt? Her trail name that went up that section. And it's funny. So Eric was with us, Eric Todd Sweet, and he gets sketched out. So don't let him tell you he doesn't. So he went to go. This is funny. He went to go around it, right? But he got stuck in an area that was even more sketchy than in the Lincoln's throat.
Oh,
So he was
figures.
freaking out. And somehow he got off of that. And then they had the people who went around it had a wicked nasty whack to get to where we were. But that one was really cool too.
Amazing. So you're training for what? What are your goals for the summer?
Honestly, there's a couple things that I want to do, and I hate saying it because I feel like if something happens and I don't do it, then I haven't really committed to it. But it's more, all I ever try to do, it's just continuous improvement, just continuously trying to be better than I was before, and just continuing to see how far I can push myself. And I like to torture myself. I'm dead serious because it humbles me, and it makes me realize, last weekend I was saying that to my friend Stacy, I'm like, being out in this where Mother Nature is beating the crap out of us. She's throwing everything. She's throwing hail at us. She's throwing rain at us. She's doing whatever she can to make this miserable, and we're getting through it, but it's humbling. It's humbling because you realize like you're just a small speck, and that you're really insignificant in the grand scheme of things. And then if you can just, push through stuff, and that's all I really try to do is I just want to see how far can I push myself, and where is that line for me, and if I can keep pushing it out, and I can keep getting stronger, mentally stronger, because that carries through. Again, it carries through in my professional life, because everything that I do, at work, it's stressful. But doing stuff like this, reminds me, hey, I can get through hard things. And then when I get to work and I'm faced with, this big problem, I don't sit there and say, oh, I can't do this. I know, okay, well, let me think this through. I know there's a way that I can figure this out and I can get through it. And there is always a way. And so doing stuff like this, makes me stronger mentally, and reminds me that there's always a way. Like if you have a will, then there's a way, and you can find that way, and so that's all I try to do is just keep pushing myself further and further.
Jeez, look at you. I'm like, I'm just constantly quitting stuff. I'm like, I'm done. I'm like, I can't do it. My toe hurts. I'm done. But no, it is true. I mean, you just got to keep pushing. And it's inspiring. So, but this is great, Gwenn. We appreciate you joining us and talking about all your adventures here. So, I think there's a lot that people can learn, and you've got an Instagram page. I know we can link that up. Do you do any blogging or anything like that, or is everything secret?
Nope, I'm just a regular chick.
All right. You can see you out there, but yeah, we'll post your Instagram if people want to check out your photography and stuff like that. But we're gonna move on to our next segment, which is recent search and rescue news. So we want you to hang out, give your commentary on some of these crazy happenings in search and rescue news. But Stomp, I think we've got to do an advertisement first, right?
Yes, 48 Peaks Alzheimer's. Hike to Fight Alzheimer's with 48 Peaks, a fundraising and awareness event for the Alzheimer's Association. Hike one of New Hampshire's 4,000 footers or create your own adventure. Consider joining us this summer or during the fall foliage season. Sorry, I'm tongue-tied today. Together, we will paint the mountains purple and raise vital funding to advance the care, support, and research efforts of the Alzheimer's Association. Our hope is that one day, Alzheimer's will be nothing but a memory. Learn more at alt.org/48 peaks.
Excellent, Stomp. So I guess your phone reading system has to be revamped a little bit. You have to print those out and put them on paper.
With like massive big font so I can see it better. And
yes,
sucks getting old.
It does. It does. All right. So Stomp, we've got national search and rescue news here, international. So we got an update on the 4 children that went missing in the jungle. The president of Colombia had said that they were found, and then he did a whoopsie and a retraction and said they weren't actually found. But then fast forward a couple of days later, the 4 children who went missing after their plane crashed in the Amazon jungle last month have been found alive. The youngest of the 4 children was just 11 months old when the aircraft crashed. Wow. So the kids endured the elements for nearly 6 weeks. And the Colombian military announced the news in a tweet on Friday night, sharing images showing the children alongside soldiers and rescue personnel. So the 4 siblings were reportedly spotted near the boundary between Colombia's Guaviare and Caqueta provinces, not far from the crash site of the single-engine Cessna, which went down rapidly on May 1st. The children's parents and the pilot were killed in the accident, and their bodies were found near the plane, which had suffered an engine failure. But the children's age 13, 9, 4, and 1 hail from an indigenous Hutoto people who are native to southern Colombia and northern Peru. So the official said the 2 older kids had some experience surviving in the rainforest and suspect that their skills may have helped them brave the ordeal. So 150 soldiers took part in the sprawling search operation, as well as helicopters and other military aircraft. So that is pretty amazing.
Well, you see the last line here. Search teams also used loudspeakers to play a recorded message from the children's grandmother, telling them to stay put, hoping they would be more receptive to a familiar voice. That's amazing.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, that's crazy. 11-month-old. So that's like that 13-year-old had the weight of the world on their shoulders, boy or girl. I don't know if it was a sister or brother, but that is a great story. We usually don't have the good ones, but that was a good story.
Yeah, it's a long time for kids to be out there surviving. I wonder how they did it. I mean, maybe they had some food from the crash.
They had they're native to the area, and clearly they had some knowledge and skills. But I mean, you got to imagine there's all kinds of creepy crawlers in the like. How do you not get bitten by a snake or a scorpion or something?
It's an amazing story.
Yeah. All right. So next story here is a sad one. A California woman fell to her death on Thursday after she lost her footing while reaching out to help a teen who had slipped on the ledge of a waterfall. So Stomp, we cover a lot of stories about people that slip and fall, and actually, a lot of fatalities around waterfalls. So I think if you're going anywhere on an elevation where there's a waterfall, that usually means wet rocks. That means you can slip. That means you got to pay attention. So this was a 48-year-old woman. She was supervising a group of 4 teenagers just before 10 a.m. at Three Sisters Fall in the Cleveland National Forest in Descanso when the accident occurred. So this is near San Diego County. So the group was hiking along the ledge of one of the falls when one of the teens slipped. The supervisor attempted to keep the girl from going over the ledge, and unfortunately both the woman and the girl fell and suffered severe injuries. So the teen was a family friend who landed in the bottommost pool. So the victim and the teenager, they landed in the bottommost pool of water after plummeting from the ledge. There were bystanders who witnessed the fall, and they began CPR on the victim until first responders were able to arrive. The teen did survive the plunge but was airlifted to the hospital for severe injuries. So cause of death, blunt force injuries to her chest and right pelvis while drowning. Death was ruled an accident. So sad story.
Yeah, that's awful.
Yeah. So you got to be careful around waterfalls and ledges.
No question.
I think people let their guard down and they get in trouble quickly.
Yeah, it happens up here quite a bit too. So
yep. Another story here. Sorry, Gwen. I have some uplifting stories coming up, I swear, but this one. So the body of an Australian hiker who has gone missing in Canadian bear country has been found, unfortunately. So 24-year-old hiker disappeared on a hike. So this story there was like 3 parts of this story. First, she was missing. Then they talked about how she had been reaching out to people saying like she didn't want to go hiking alone, and she was trying to get a group together to see if anyone wanted to go on these trails. She's in British Columbia. She was like, I'm not nervous about solo hiking, but I'm nervous about bears in that area. So she went missing. So everybody thought like, oh God, maybe she got attacked by a bear. But unfortunately, that wasn't the case. But unfortunately, she was found deceased. The death's not considered suspicious. It looks like all the evidence of the scene shows that she accidentally lost her footing and fell. So, again, she had reached out over social media talking about plans to do this particular hike. Her vehicle was found at the trailhead of this section called Bear Lake, and they did a search and rescue effort looking for her over the course of a couple of days, and then finally did locate her. So, sad story.
That's terrible.
Yeah. It is a very sad story here. But here's a more uplifting story for you, Gwen. This is a story that a missing hiker that disappeared in Olympic National Park for like 3 or 4 days, but this one's got a twist to it. So this is a 44-year-old Stanford University professor, gentleman by the name of Hunter Frazier. He went hiking on Thursday, June 8th. He left his car at the trailhead on Monday. He was planning to hike 40 miles over 2 nights, and he had texted his family on Tuesday morning, said he was going to be back in Seattle by midday Wednesday. On the 10th of June, the National Park Service reported that, so there was a rescue going on because nobody had located him. On June 10th, the Park Service reported that he had self-rescued with the assistance of other hikers. So he was found about 50 miles away from where he was last seen in the days prior. There's a twist to this one. The twist is that the Santa Clara County Superior Court indicated that Frazier was due in court in California on Friday, June 9th, the day before he resurfaced. So he's supposed to be back on the 8th, didn't return, was supposed to be in court the next day, but was missing, showed up finally on that Saturday. The case that he was supposed to go to court was from an incident in July of 2022 where him and his girlfriend got into a fight, basically, and this guy was charged with a felony by the district attorney. They originally charged him with a misdemeanor, and then they upgraded it to a felony. So they were going after this guy. He conveniently goes missing on the day that he's supposed to show up in court. So I think that this guy was generating a crisis to basically say, like, I couldn't come to court because I went missing.
Yeah.
So interesting.
A little fishy to me.
Yeah. So a little sketchy.
Yeah, a little sketch.
So, but he is back, and I'm sure that he'll have to go to court eventually. But they postponed his court date, and he bought himself a little bit more time. So,
wow.
Yep. Sketchy stomp. All right, so couple of local stories here, like 4 local stories, and we got a couple of thru hikers getting in trouble. So shortly before 9 on June 9th, Fish and Game was notified of an injured hiker on the Kinsman Ridge Trail in Lincoln. So solo thru hiker had slipped on a wet route and suffered a lower leg injury that was preventing her from continuing. The injured hiker took shelter from the persistent rain under her tent until rescuers arrived. Nearest access to the hiker's location was Railbrook Trail in Eastern. First, rescuers arrived at the hiker's location at 2:30. The team stabilized the injury, packaged her into a rescue litter, and took her down about 3.5 miles back to the trailhead on Route 116. So that's the backside of Kinsman's. So injured hiker was identified as 41-year-old hiker from Quebec. She was experienced, well-equipped. She had departed Georgia in February, so she's appreciative of the rescue team's efforts, and the team comprised of 18 volunteers from Pemi Valley Search and Rescue and 2 conservation officers. So everybody's slipping out there.
It's been slick. Yeah.
It's super slick.
Yeah.
Weather cycle we're in.
Yeah.
Weather's horrendous.
Yep. Next one is again on Friday, June 9th, 1:30 p.m. Fish and Game officers were notified of a hiker that had fallen and struck her head on Rattle River Trail. So the hiker had lost consciousness, and a physician hiking with her, always want to hike with a doctor if you can, he recommended that a carry-out rescue was needed. Rattle River doesn't have cell phone service, so it sounds like they booked it down the trail to get cell phone coverage, made a 911 call, and then headed back up. I think from what I can tell, she was in you come down from Mariah, and then you hit the bottom of basically the Rattle River section, and then you've got to cross the river, and it looks like she was crossing that stream when one of her trekking poles broke, causing her to fall face first into the rocky bank of the stream. So that section there, you are pretty far. You're pretty deep in, and you've got to either go back up to Mariah to get cell phone coverage, or you've got to run down closer to the shelter, either one way or the other on Rattle River. So I guess she suffered several injuries, including lacerations, loss of consciousness, and an injured arm and leg. So pretty serious injury. So she was assisted by her hiking companions and cared for by the physician on scene while waiting for rescuers to arrive. So 1:30 the call came in. The litter arrived at 3:45. They evaluated the hiker's conditions, placed her in a litter, and started carrying her down. So they got her out to the trailhead by 5:05. And, so she was taken to Androscoggin Valley Hospital in Berlin to get treated.
I can hear the Blackhawk flying by right now, actually, outside.
Oh, you got a Blackhawk coming for you, Stomp?
Oh, hopefully not for me, but it's flying by. I'm here at Welch Dickey. It's heading north towards the Pemmy.
Whoa. But here's the good news on this one. She was well prepared, and she had a hike safe card. So our friend George Pelletier is going to be super happy to hear that.
There you go.
Next up, this was a tough one here. This is on Flume Slide. So it's picking up. Like, it's wet outside. People are slipping all over the place. But this one was 11:25 a.m. Injured hiker call came into 911 from the Flume Slide Trail in Lincoln. 52-year-old Massachusetts man suffered a sliding 15-foot fall while ascending the Flume Slide. It's interesting. They say Flume Slide, so I don't know if he was directly on the slide or if he was on the trail. My guess is he's probably on the trail in one of those like granite sections or something.
Oh, yeah. The proper
but
trail.
He is, so he was heading up, actually. So he was 3.5 miles from the bike path. A hiker called for help, but felt that it was a companion with him, called for help, but felt that they should continue slowly down the trail. So they were heading down. 2 conservation officers were sent to assist. As time progressed, the hiker's condition didn't improve, so they called in for volunteers from Pemmy Valley Search and Rescue to help carry out this hiker. The hiker was stabilized enough to make it the entire distance to the trailhead under his own power, where the rescue party arrived basically at like 2:50. So that's a tough one, 15-foot fall, and he's able to power his way out. So good for him. Gentleman from Canton, Massachusetts, was transported by Linwood ambulance to Littleton Regional for evaluation. They said he had serious injuries that he suffered. So he was well-prepared, experienced hiker who explained that he just slipped on wet rocks. So that's pretty ballsy of him to be able to hike himself out of there.
Yeah, suppose so.
If I did that, I would demand that they don't put my name in the paper.
That trail is a tough one.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, they have some sketchy sections, especially if it's wet.
Absolutely,
and it's almost always wet anyway, even in good weather, because it just doesn't get any sun. So
yeah.
And last but not least, Stomp, and then we can wrap it up here, there's a lost hiker in Sharon. So this is on Monday, June 12th, around 8:15. Fish and Game gets a call, 911. Lost hiker in a wooded area near Mountain Pond in the town of Sharon. So the dispatchers were able to pick up the GPS coordinates for the location of the cell phone used to call 911. So with that information, conservation officers began hiking the woods road towards the cell phone coordinates. As they were hiking in, they were able to make voice contact with the lost hiker, 70-year-old hiker from Belfast, Maine. This hiker was lost. She was given water and a headlamp and escorted out of the woods. Got back to the trailhead around 9:30 or so. So I guess she was visiting the Peterborough area and had parked at Calasas State Forest to hike the trails. She got out on trails around 5:30 or so and then got lost and called for help. So bring a headlamp. Don't start hiking too late.
Yep, that is the lesson.
That is. So we got a through hiker getting injured. We got a fall on flume slide. We've got a Rattle River rescue, and then just a local hiker missing. So that's 4 in a week, Stomp. So it's picking up. It's summer.
Yeah, for sure. Yep. And we're only 1 degree away from being able to swim in the water and go floating.
True. All right. So we're going to wrap it up here. This is 110. Stay tuned next week to find out whether Stomp actually survives the Mount Washington Road Race.
And if Mike races in it.
Yep. Then does Mike's toe heal enough for him to race? We'll see.
Cliffhanger.
Stay tuned.
Yes.
The next exciting episode.
Yep. All right. We're out.
Later.
All right. Thanks.
Thank you for listening. If you enjoyed the show, you can subscribe on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Podbean, YouTube, or wherever you listen to podcasts. If you want to learn more about the topics covered in today's show, please check out the show notes and safety information at SLASRPodcast.com. That's SLASR podcast.com. You can also follow the show on Facebook and Instagram. We hope you'll join us next week for another great show. Until then, on behalf of Mike and Stomp, get out there and crush some mega peaks.
Now covered in scratches, blisters, and bug bites, Chris Staff wanted to complete his most challenging day hike ever.
Fish and Game officers say the hiker from Florida activated an emergency beacon yesterday morning. He was hiking along the Appalachian Trail when the weather started to get worse. Officials say the snow was piled up to 3 feet in some spots, and there was a wind chill of -1 degree.
And there's 3 words to describe this race. Do we all know what they are?
Here's Lieutenant James Nealon, New Hampshire Fish and Game. Lieutenant, thanks for being with us today.
Thanks for having me.
What are some of the most common mistakes you see people make when they're heading out on the trails to hike here in New Hampshire?
It seems to me the most common is being unprepared. I think if they just simply visited hikesafe.com and got a list of the 10 essential items and had those in their packs, they probably would have no need to ever call us at all.